The day the Zarak came to Earth, it was unlike any other in human history. The sky, once clear and peaceful, was now covered with the dark, towering ships that had come from beyond the stars. They hovered above the cities of Earth, their presence so overwhelming that people froze, unsure of what to do. The alien ships were like nothing Earth had ever seen. They were sleek, metallic, and their size was beyond anything humanity could comprehend. The Zarak, an alien race of vast intelligence and power, came with a message for Earth. They did not come to conquer, they claimed, but to offer an opportunity for peace. But this peace came with a price. Earth's leaders were called to kneel before their queen, Mother Nera, and swear loyalty to the Zarak Empire. In return, Earth would be allowed to live under their protection, but humanity would no longer be free. The choice was clear: kneel and survive, or stand and fight for their freedom with no guarantee of survival. Derek Walker, a military strategist, was among the first to stand against the Zarak. He was not a leader in any official sense, but his reputation as a thinker and tactician had spread far and wide. When the call for negotiation came, Earth's leaders had chosen him. He was to represent humanity in front of Mother Nera, to ensure the survival of the species. But Derek had no intention of kneeling. He could not. Kneeling would be a submission, a giving up of everything humanity had fought for. As Derek walked into the vast chamber where Mother Nera awaited, he felt the weight of the moment. The room was unlike any he had seen before. The walls were made of strange, alien materials that shimmered in the dim light. The air smelled different, heavier, as though the very atmosphere had been altered by the alien presence. And standing at the center of the room was the queen herself. Mother Nera was tall and imposing, her form cloaked in intricate armor that gleamed with a strange iridescence. Her eyes glowed with an unsettling light, and her skin was a soft shade of violet. She stood with an air of authority that was impossible to ignore, a presence that seemed to fill the entire room.
"Welcome, Derek Walker," she said, her voice smooth and powerful, echoing in the chamber.
"You are humanity's representative. Tell me, what will you choose?"
Will you kneel as all others have and ensure the survival of your people? Or will you refuse and risk your species' extinction? Derek's heart raced, but his resolve remained firm. He stepped forward, his voice calm and unwavering as he responded, "I will not kneel. Not to you. Not to anyone. Humanity's strength lies in its freedom. I will not submit to anyone, not even a queen from beyond the stars." There was a moment of silence. Derek could feel the queen's eyes on him, studying him, as though she were trying to understand him. The room seemed to grow colder, the weight of the queen's gaze pressing down on him like a physical force. "You refuse to kneel?" Mother Nera asked, her voice now tinged with an emotion that Derek couldn't quite place. "You would rather face extinction than submit to me?" Derek stood tall, his voice steady. "I would rather die free than live as a servant." The queen's lips curled into a small smile. It was not one of amusement, but of admiration. "You are bold, human. I will give you this. Your refusal is not out of cowardice, but of pride. I respect that. But understand this, Derek Walker. Your people will suffer for your defiance. I will not make exceptions. If you will not kneel, I will make you understand why submission is the only path to survival." Derek braced himself for the queen's wrath, but it did not come. Instead, she stepped closer to him, her eyes locking onto his with a depth of interest he hadn't expected. "But you are unlike the others," she said, almost to herself. "Most would have bowed at the sight of me, but you stand defiant. That is intriguing. Perhaps I will make you my challenge. The words took Derek by surprise. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice laced with confusion. "You will be my test," Mother Nera replied. "If you can prove yourself worthy of your defiance, I will offer you something far greater than death. If you can withstand my trials, I will make you my equal. But if you fail, your people will suffer the consequences." Derek's mind raced. A test? What did that mean? He had never heard of such a thing, but he could not back down now. Not after everything he had said. He would face whatever challenge Mother Nera threw at him, but he would not kneel. "You have a deal where?" Derek said, his voice strong. Mother Nera's smile widened. "Very well, Derek Walker. I will give you the chance to prove your worth. If you succeed, I will make you my ruler, and your people will know peace. But if you fail, you will learn the true cost of defying me." With that, the Queen stepped back, her eyes still fixed on Derek with an unreadable expression. "Prepare yourself," she said. "The trials begin now." As Derek was led away by the alien guards, his thoughts raced. He had no idea what these trials would entail, but he knew one thing: he could not fail. For humanity's sake, he could not fail. But deep inside, a small part of him wondered if this was all part of her plan. If Mother Nera's offer of a test was not just a way to break his spirit, but to make him submit to her will in the end. Derek Walker was not sure what to expect when he was led deeper into the alien ship. The walls shimmered with a strange, ethereal glow, and the air was thick with the hum of alien technology. Every step he took seemed to echo, as if the very ship itself was alive, watching him. It was a place of immense power, and Derek could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. He had refused to kneel, and now he had to prove that refusal was not a mistake. He was escorted by two alien guards, towering beings with sharp angular features and bodies covered in black armor. They said nothing as they guided him through the ship's narrow hallways. Derek's mind raced as he tried to prepare for whatever challenge Mother Nera had in store for him. What did she mean by trials? What kind of test could an alien queen have in mind for a human? And why did she seem so intrigued by him? The guard stopped in front of a large circular door. Without a word, they pressed a sequence of symbols on the door's surface, causing it to slide open with a soft hiss. Derek stepped forward, his heart beating faster with each step. Inside, the room was vast and open, with high ceilings that seemed to disappear into the shadows. The floor was made of smooth, reflective stone, and in the center stood a massive pedestal upon which rested a strange, glowing artifact. Mother Nera stood beside the pedestal, her violet eyes locked onto Derek as he entered the room. Her presence was overwhelming, as though the entire room had been designed around her. She stood tall and regal, her armor gleaming in the soft light, exuding an air of authority and power. Derek couldn't help but feel small in her presence, but he refused to let that fear show. He had made his choice, and now there was no turning back. "Welcome to the first of your trials," Mother Nera's voice rang out, strong and commanding. "This is where your journey begins, Derek Walker. What you see before you is an ancient artifact, one that holds the key to understanding the power of the ZyraHFY Empire. It is a test of both your mind and your spirit. If you wish to succeed, you must solve the puzzle it presents. Fail, and you will lose everything." Derek approached the pedestal, his eyes narrowing as he studied the artifact. It was a small, crystal-like object, glowing with an inner light. At first glance it seemed simple, but Derek knew better. Nothing the ZyraHFY did was ever simple. He reached out to touch it, but as his fingers brushed against the surface, the room around him began to shift. The walls stretched and twisted, warping into strange, unfamiliar shapes. The air grew heavier, and the ground beneath his feet seemed to shift, as though it were no longer solid. "Focus, Derek," Mother Neera's voice echoed in the room. "This is no ordinary artifact. It is a test of your will. Solve the puzzle or face the consequences." Derek steadied himself, trying to calm his racing thoughts. This was not just a physical test, it was a mental one. He had been prepared for combat, for danger, but not for a challenge like this. He could feel the pressure mounting, but he forced himself to think clearly. He was not the kind of man who would be defeated by a puzzle, no matter how alien it seemed. As he focused on the glowing artifact, the air around him began to shift again. Images flashed before his eyes. Visions of distant galaxies, strange creatures, and worlds beyond his comprehension. His mind was overwhelmed with the sheer magnitude of the knowledge the artifact was attempting to impart. It was a connection to something far greater than himself, something that transcended time and space. But then, just as quickly as the visions came, they vanished. Derek found himself standing alone in the room once again. The artifact remained in place, its glow now flickering faintly. He realized the challenge was not simply about solving a riddle. It was about controlling his own mind, resisting the pull of the artifact's power, and maintaining his focus. This was a battle not just of intellect, but of willpower. Derek took a deep breath and closed his eyes, blocking out the distractions. He had faced challenges before, but never anything like this. He was human, and that meant something. He didn't have the advanced knowledge of the Zarok, but he had something they didn't: his ability to think through problems, to adapt and survive. He had made his choice when he refused to kneel, and now he would prove that humanity's strength lay in its ability to face the unknown and conquer it. With renewed determination, Derek reached out once more to touch the artifact. This time, instead of allowing the visions to overwhelm him, he focused on the pattern of the glow, the way the light pulsed and flickered. Slowly, he began to understand the rhythm of it, the subtle changes in the way the light moved. It was a language, a code, waiting to be deciphered. The room seemed to hold its breath as Derek worked. His fingers brushed against the artifact, and the glowing crystal began to respond, shifting and changing in response to his touch. The air around him hummed with energy as the puzzle began to unfold before him. It was a strange, beautiful feeling, as though he were unlocking a secret that had been hidden for millennia. Finally, with a soft click, the artifact released its energy. The room returned to its normal state, the walls no longer shifting, and the ground solid once again. Derek stepped back, his heart pounding in his chest. The puzzle had been solved. He had passed the first trial. Mother Neera's voice echoed through the room, this time tinged with a hint of approval. "Impressive, Derek. You have solved the puzzle, but this is only the beginning. The Zarok do not test only the mind. They test the spirit. The next trial will push you further, to the very limits of your endurance. Are you ready?" Derek did not hesitate. He had come this far, and he would not back down now. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady, though his mind was still reeling from the puzzle he had just solved. "Good," Mother Neera said, her tone softening. "Then let the next trial begin." Before Derek could react, the floor beneath him suddenly shifted. He was pulled into the air, his body weightless for a brief moment, and then he was falling through a tunnel of light and darkness. The sensation was disorienting, and Derek fought to maintain control. The trials were far from over, but he knew that each test was an opportunity to prove humanity's strength. The Queen had made her challenge, and now it was time for him to prove that he was worthy of his refusal to kneel. When he finally landed, Derek found himself in a different place, an arena, surrounded by alien warriors. These were not the Zorak guards he had seen before. These were fighters, trained in combat and strength. The air was thick with tension as they circled him, their eyes filled with anticipation. Derek's heart raced as he realized the second trial was about to begin. This was not a test of intellect, it was a test of survival. He had faced many battles in his life, but nothing like this. The stakes were higher than ever. His mind was still focused on the first trial, but now he had to adapt to the danger of the second. He would fight, he would survive, and he would prove to Mother Nera that humanity could stand strong in the face of any challenge. He tightened his fists, preparing for the fight of his life. The first trial had been a test of his mind. The second would be a test of his body and his soul. He would not kneel, and he would not break. The Zarak had underestimated humanity, and Derek was about to show them just how wrong they were. The air in the arena was thick with tension, a quiet hum that seemed to pulse from the very walls. Derek stood at the center, surrounded by alien warriors. Their eyes were cold, calculating, and their movements were sharp with purpose. The challenge he had faced in the first two trials had been unlike anything he had ever known. But this was a battle unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The second trial had tested Derek's body, his endurance, and his will to survive. He had fought against alien warriors, each one stronger and faster than any human he had ever faced, and yet through sheer willpower, Derek had prevailed. He had proven himself worthy of the challenge, but the Queen had made it clear that was only the beginning. There was more to come, much more. The sound of footsteps echoed in the arena, and Derek's eyes snapped to the entrance. Mother Nera appeared, her presence commanding the attention of every living being in the arena. She stood tall, her violet eyes glimmering with a mixture of approval and curiosity. The warriors around Derek parted to make way for her, and the atmosphere shifted with her arrival. "Impressive, Derek," Mother Nera said, her voice carrying effortlessly across the arena. "You have survived the first trial, and you have fought with strength and determination in the second. But now you face the true test, the trial of the mind and the soul." Derek's heart beat faster as he faced her. He knew that the true nature of the challenge had yet to reveal itself. The Zarak were not just physical warriors, they were also masters of strategy, intellect, and psychological warfare. And the Queen had already shown him that she was not one to be underestimated. "I'm ready," Derek said, his voice steady despite the nervous tension building inside him. "What do you have for me now?" Mother Nera smiled, but it wasn't a smile of amusement. It was a smile of calculation, as if she were studying him like a subject in a grand experiment. "You've proven your strength, Derek, but I wonder if your mind is strong enough to face the greatest challenge yet. The final trial is one of intellect, of perception. You will face a series of challenges designed to test not just your intelligence, but your ability to adapt, to think on your feet, and to make decisions that will shape your future." The Queen waved her hand, and suddenly the arena around Derek seemed to dissolve. The ground beneath him shifted, and he found himself standing in a dark, quiet room. There was no one around, only the distant hum of alien machinery. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Nothing was familiar, and everything felt alien. A screen appeared before him, and words began to form on its surface. "Answer me this, Derek Walker," the screen displayed. "What is the value of a single life when placed against the fate of an entire species? If you had to choose between saving one person you loved or saving an entire world, Which would you choose? Derek stared at the screen, his mind racing. It was a simple question, but the weight of it was immense. He had never faced a decision like this before. On one hand, saving a single life, the life of someone he cared about, was important. On the other hand, the survival of an entire species, the future of Earth, was at stake. The question seemed to pull at his very soul, challenging everything he believed in. The answer was not easy, but Derek had to make a choice. His mind flashed to images of Earth, his home, the people he had fought to protect. He thought of the millions of lives that depended on him and the responsibility he carried. And then he thought of the people closest to him, the ones he loved and cared for. Would it be right to choose one over the other? Was it even possible to make such a choice? He took a deep breath, focusing on the question before him. It wasn't just a test of logic. It was a test of character, a test of his humanity. And in that moment, Derek realized the answer wasn't as simple as choosing between two options. It was about understanding the weight of the decision, understanding the cost of each choice. He answered slowly, deliberately. I would choose to save the many, because that is what defines humanity. Sacrificing for the greater good is what makes us strong, but we must never forget the value of the individual. We must fight for both, the individual and the many. The screen flickered, and the words slowly faded away. A new set of words appeared, this time in a different language, one Derek had never seen before. He studied the symbols, trying to make sense of them. It was another puzzle, another challenge. But this time, it wasn't just about intellect. It was about understanding the deeper meaning behind the language. Derek's mind worked quickly, recalling the patterns and structures of languages he had studied in his life. He had learned to adapt, to think critically under pressure. This was another test, and he would not fail it. With each passing moment, Derek began to decipher the symbols. It was a complex language, but his mind pieced it together, one word at a time. Slowly, the message began to take shape. It was a message of warning, a message about the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of making the wrong choices. It spoke of the balance between life and death, between strength and wisdom. Derek read the message aloud as he pieced it together. The price of power is the sacrifice of wisdom. The strongest are not always the wisest, and the wise do not always seek power. Power without wisdom leads to destruction. Power with wisdom leads to harmony. As the final words left his lips, the screen faded away and the room around him shifted again. This time, he was no longer alone. Mother Nero stood before him, her violet eyes watching him with a mixture of admiration and expectation. "You have answered the question, Derek," she said, her voice carrying a note of approval. "And you have solved the puzzle. But there is one more challenge for you, one that will test not just your intellect, but your very soul." Derek's heart raced as the last words of the trial echoed in his mind. What was the final challenge? He had already faced so much, endured so much. Would this be the breaking point? Mother Nera stepped closer, her gaze intense. "The final test, Derek, is the test of your heart. You will be given a choice, one that will determine the future of humanity and the ZyraHFY Empire. The choice you make will either save your people or doom them. Choose wisely, for the consequences will be far-reaching." Derek's mind raced as he faced the Queen. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. He had fought, he had survived, and he had proven himself worthy. But this final choice, this was different. This was not a battle of strength or intellect. This was a battle of will, a battle of conviction. As the Queen waited, Derek's thoughts turned inward. He had always believed in the strength of humanity, in the power of freedom and choice, but now he was faced with a decision that could change everything. The future of his people, the survival of Earth, rested on this choice. Could he make the right decision? "I am ready," Derek said, his voice calm, but his heart was heavy with the knowledge of the challenge ahead. He had already defied the Queen, survived the trials, and proven himself worthy of the test. Now it was time to face the final trial. Derek stood before Mother Nera, her violet eyes gleaming with an intensity he had never seen before. The final trial had come. Everything that had happened so far, the battles, the puzzles, the decisions, had led to this moment. This was not just a test of his strength, his intellect, or his will. This was a test of his soul. The weight of it pressed down on him like a heavy stone. The choice he would make now could change everything, not just for him, but for humanity, and perhaps for the entire galaxy. Mother Nera's voice echoed in the chamber, soft yet commanding. "You have faced my trials, Derek Walker. You have proven your strength and your mind. Now, you will face the final challenge. The choice you make will determine the future of your people and the ZyraHFY Empire. Choose wisely." Derek's heart raced as he looked into the Queen's eyes. She had tested him in ways he could not have imagined. She had challenged him physically, mentally, and emotionally. And now, it seemed, the Queen was offering him a choice, one that could reshape everything. He didn't know what it was, but he could feel it in the air. The gravity of the situation was almost too much to bear. "What do you want me to choose?" Derek asked, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in his mind. Mother Nera's lips curled into a small smile, but it was a smile that did not offer comfort. "You must choose between power and peace. I offer you the power to rule beside me, to become my equal. Together we could conquer worlds, reshape the galaxy, and ensure the survival of your species. Under my rule, humanity would thrive, but only as part of the ZyraHFY Empire." Derek's mind raced. The Queen was offering him everything he could ever want: power, control, and the safety of his people. He could sit beside her on the throne, commanding not just the fate of Earth, but of entire civilizations. He would be more than just a leader. He would be an emperor, a ruler in a vast empire. And yet, something about the offer felt wrong. It felt like a trap, a lie wrapped in the promise of greatness. "You say we would thrive under your rule," Derek said, trying to keep his voice calm. "But at what cost? Freedom? Independence? What would humanity have to give up to join your empire?" Mother Nera's eyes darkened, the smile fading from her lips. "Freedom is an illusion, Derek. Your species fights for it as if it is the only thing that matters. But you have seen the truth of the universe. You have seen the power of the ZyraHFY, the might we wield. Alone, humanity would fall to the darkness that threatens us all. Under my rule, you would be safe. Under my rule, your people would be protected." Derek took a step back, his mind struggling to process the Queen's words. He had heard her arguments before, but now they felt hollow. He had always believed that freedom was worth fighting for, that humanity's strength lay not in power, but in the right to choose its own destiny. If he accepted the Queen's offer, humanity would be safe, but it would no longer be free. They would be ruled, subjugated, as part of an empire they could never control. But there was another choice, wasn't there? Another path he could take. He didn't have to accept the Queen's offer. He didn't have to kneel before her. even if she offered him the universe. There was a way to stand tall, to fight for what was right, even if it meant the destruction of everything he knew. "You are offering me a crown, Mother Nera," Derek said, his voice firm. "But what I want is not power. What I want is peace, true peace, not the kind you can force with strength and domination. I want a future for humanity where we stand on our own, free from the fear of alien conquest. I will not rule beside you. I will not submit to your empire. I will fight for humanity's freedom." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of the decision he had made. Derek knew the consequences. He knew what this choice would mean. If he refused the Queen's offer, he would not only be rejecting power, he would be rejecting the safety of his people. The ZyraHFY were not merciful. The Queen had made it clear that the price of defiance was death, either for him or for those he loved. But Derek didn't falter. He couldn't. The cost of submission was too great. Humanity's freedom was worth the fight. It was worth the sacrifice. He had already made up his mind. Mother Nera's expression darkened, her gaze hardening as Derek's words sank in. "You have chosen poorly, Derek Walker," she said, her voice cold and filled with a quiet rage. "You have chosen to stand against me. And now you will see the consequences of that choice." Derek's heart pounded as he prepared himself for whatever came next. He had made his decision, and there was no turning back. He would not kneel, and he would not accept the Queen's offer. He had fought for humanity's freedom before, and he would do so again, no matter the cost. But as Mother Nera raised her hand, ready to deliver the punishment she had promised, something unexpected happened. The ZyraHFY warriors who had been watching from the sidelines stepped forward, their eyes filled with a strange mixture of curiosity and admiration. One by one, they knelt before Derek, lowering their heads in a gesture of respect. "What is this?" Derek asked, his voice filled with confusion. "Why are you kneeling? You're supposed to be loyal to the Queen." The warriors did not answer. Instead, they turned to Mother Nera, their faces unreadable. The Queen's expression faltered for just a moment, as if she were unsure of what was happening. Then one of the warriors stepped forward, his voice deep and strong. "We kneel not to you, Mother Nera," the warrior said, "but to him. He has proven himself worthy of our respect. He has shown us that true strength is not found in power or domination, but in the courage to stand up for what is right. Derek Walker is not a servant to your empire. He is a leader of the people, a symbol of hope." Mother Nera's eyes widened in disbelief. "You dare defy me?" she hissed, her voice filled with fury. The warrior did not flinch. "We follow strength, yes, but we follow strength in the form of truth and honor. You have ruled with fear and force, but it is Derek who has shown us the true meaning of leadership." Derek stood in stunned silence, his mind racing. This was not what he had expected. He had thought he would face death, or worse, the full wrath of the ZyraHFY Empire. But now, here were the warriors, the ones who had once served the Queen, kneeling before him. They had seen something in him, something that transcended the Queen's power. The room was silent for a long moment, as if the entire galaxy itself was holding its breath. Derek could feel the weight of the warriors' gazes on him, and he knew that this moment, this choice, had changed everything. Finally, Derek turned to face Mother Nera, his voice calm and resolute. "I did not come here to fight for power," he said. "I came here to fight for the future of humanity, and I will continue to do so, no matter what." Mother Nera stared at him for a long moment, her face hard with anger. But beneath the fury, There was something else, something that perhaps resembled respect. She had lost this battle, but Derek knew that the war was far from over. "You may have won this battle, Derek Walker," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "But this is far from the end. The Zarok Empire does not forgive, and we will not forget. But for now, I will let you go. Do not mistake my mercy for weakness." With that, the Queen turned and left the room, her departure as swift and sudden as her arrival. Derek stood alone in the arena, surrounded by the Zarok warriors who had once been her loyal soldiers. The battle was over, for now. But Derek knew this was only the beginning. The fight for humanity's freedom was far from finished, and no matter what came next, he would stand tall, as he had always done.